Are you aware that solo aging creates all sorts of challenges for financial planning and long-term care and estate planning? Well, here to talk with me about this is Jay Zigmont. He's the author of Child-Free Guide to Life and Money and also the founder and CEO of Child-Free Wealth. Jay, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is a huge topic, and I'm happy you're digging in.
Yeah, let's dig in. Where to begin?
So, all right, let's start with some numbers because, why not? And the thing that people don't realize is somewhere around 25% of the US are child free or permanently childless. So that means they have no kids, they're never planning on it. So you're talking about millions and millions of folks, about 50 million in the United States. And of those, about 32% will never marry. And that's opposed to 2.5% of parents. So you've got this huge population of people that have no spouse, but then you've also got the ones that, hey, their spouse might have passed. And the result is you have millions of people solo aging, or as we call them, soloists.
And for soloists, there's all sorts of financial planning implications. So where to begin with that topic?
All right, so here's the number. The single tax across your life, it costs you between $400,000 and $1 million across your life to be single. And that's not literally a tax, but that's like the extra cost. So you can't split your apartment, you can't split the electricity, you can't split things. And the result is that from a financial standpoint, we end up with one of two camps. We end up with soloists that have been very good about managing their money and have some decent money, and the ones who are kind of broke. And it's not their fault really. And if you look at the census stats, they actually found if you look at adults over 55, the person with or the group with the most amount of money and net worth are single childless women. So I mean, there's a group that's doing well, but then there's also the group that like an extra $1 million across your lifetime just is unbearable.
Yeah. So if you've planned well enough, the assumption is you're not in crisis mode. But if you haven't planned well enough, you are or a crisis awaits you.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is as you look at retirement, you've got to figure out how to make ends meet. And let's be real, living on Social Security alone is not a great solution for most. And things like Medicare does not pay for long-term care. So the question becomes, who's going to take care of me when you're older? And as child-free people, we often get this kind of thrown at us as a negative question, which is like, well, if you don't have kids, who's going to take care of you? Well, here's the actual stat. If you look at child-free folks and you say what percentage of them have any financial support from their family over 55, the answer is 2.5%. So that's like nothing. But if you look at adults over 55 and you look at parents, 1.5% of them get financial support from their family. So listen, neither of you getting support.
So in a world where you're not getting support and you have no children, assuming you have, so then what? Like, I'm flummoxed.
Yeah. So people are like, well, who is going to take care of you when you're older? And the answer is your plan is with help. And your plan really needs to look at retirement, but it also needs to look at long-term care. So on average, it costs $115,000 a year for 1 year in a skilled nursing facility. On average, women will spend 3.7 years in care, men 2.2. So you're talking about a huge cost that is increasing by about 5% a year. So you have to have a plan. My goal with my clients is by mid 40s to make a choice on long-term care and either say, hey, I'm going to self-fund it, or I'm going to have long-term care insurance, or I'm going to rely on Medicaid. But let's be real, Medicaid care sucks.
Yeah. So I think, to me, it's interesting when I think about planning for long-term care. You mentioned a skilled nursing facility. There are housing options prior to that, whether it's a assisted living facility or continuing care or shared housing. There are other housing options for people long before they get to skilled nursing.
Absolutely. And I went to the end because you got to look at the numbers. If you want to age in place, which is what a lot of people want to do, the cost can actually be higher than a skilled nursing facility because you got to bring care in. What we see a lot of soloists want to do is what we call kind of the golden girl setup. The whole bunch of women living together, sharing, which is a great concept, but I don't see it executed often. You have to build a community if you're going to do that. And having a community support you is great, but the problem is if you're all the same age, well, that's not really going to work. So community care, retirement communities are great. Elderly, 55 and older communities. There's a place I love. It's called the Villages of Moorhead, where it's a really high-end apartment complex that includes food and housekeeping and concierge and transportation. They found that if you provide all of that support, less than 3% end up in long-term care as in a nursing home. So there are ways to do it, but none of them are cheap.
Right. And then when you mention sort of the three options that people typically have, Medicaid, long-term care insurance, or self-fund, it's not always so black and white, right? It could be for some that it's a mix of long-term care and self-funding. It doesn't have to be the case that long-term care insurance pays for everything, right? You still could pay for out of private assets for some of the long-term care needs that you have.
I mean, the reality check is going to be a mix of both no matter what. Even if you have long-term care insurance, it may not cover all of it. If you are going to self-fund today, somebody asked me, a soloist, I had a woman ask me, she said, how much should I put aside? And the answer is about $500,000. And she was like, well, that's a lot of money. I'm like, well, that's kind of the number. You have to invest that, it has to grow, has to do that. So you can take some of the edge off of long-term care. But long-term care costs are based on both your health and the health of your parents. So if you wait too long to get it and your parents have like an Alzheimer or dementia diagnosis, you may not qualify. The other challenge is for soloists in particular, things like hybrid long-term care, where it's a mix of life insurance and long-term care, has very little value to us on the life insurance side. And why buy something when half of it you don't need?
There are certainly hybrids that you could buy where that you get an annuity instead of life insurance. Is that a better option?
It is. There's only one annuity I recommend, and it's a fixed index annuity that has a healthcare rider. And there's ways to do that. But the hard part with annuities is the fees are so opaque. Like really figuring out what you're buying and what you're paying is an option. The bonus of the annuity is it doesn't have a health, you don't have to go through a health process. You don't have to go through underwriting. And that does make a difference. But all that's really doing is doubling your money in most cases so that you have some plan for long-term care. But the other challenge is you actually have to have somebody to execute on your care plan.
So when you think about executing on your healthcare plan, oftentimes people need a durable power of attorney for money, durable power of attorney for healthcare, advanced directives, living wills, DNRs, MOLS and PULSE, and am I running out of things about the estate planning side?
Well, yeah. The general stat in the United States is something like 70% of the U.S. does not have an estate plan in place. So a lot of people don't have paperwork, but what they do is they rely on the next of kin to fill in for them. Well, if you don't have next of kin and you're single, the answer is who makes decisions for you? If you don't put it on paper, you end up with the government or healthcare organizations making decisions for you. And that's where you get like those horror movies of like the conservators are appointed and take advantage of them. I'm not saying that's always the case. I'm saying it's not the best choice.
So what's the option for people who are solo ages that do need a healthcare proxy and someone to sign a HIPAA release to, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it's hard. So in California or Arizona, you can appoint a professional fiduciary to do it for you. They'll be your medical power attorney, financial power attorney, executor, trustee. In the other 48 states, there's not much of an option. I found one attorney in Georgia that offers something called a Aging Ally. There's a few kind of organizations that might do that on a volunteer basis, but all of those are state-based, which ends up an issue. So you can pay a trust company to do this for you, but trust companies really want a percentage of your assets and really don't want to talk to you if you're going to die with zero, which a lot of child-free folks want to do. So you end up in this problem of like, who can I appoint? And one of the things that folks have done is said, well, I'm going to appoint my nephew. And I had somebody reach out to me and said, hey, I'm going to appoint my nephew. I don't really know him, but I'm going to give him my estate, and in return, he can take care of me. And I'm like, hey, that's actually setting up for elder abuse. Because you're like, well, do I put my aunt in the good home and pay for it? Or do I keep my inheritance? So it's this giant problem. It's been one I've been working on for years, and there's not a great solution right now. We're actually launching a product we call Child Free Trust, a service later this year, that we're going to be child-free people's executor, medical power attorney, financial power attorney, trustee across the country. But I will tell you, it's been a giant regulatory technology and paper nightmare to do that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. One of the things, I'm involved in a elder planning course delivered by the Financial Planning Association. And one of the sections in the course is we talk about holding a family meeting where presumably you would tell your loved ones what your wishes are for your money, for your healthcare needs, for your end of life needs, et cetera. How does someone who's a solo ager deal with the family meeting? There's no family.
Yeah, there's not. I just had a great conversation with a company called Care Ally. And what they do is they help people create care plans in advance. So you like go look at facilities, go figure out what you want. You create that entire plan. And then in our product, you upload it to the system and we help execute it. But you have to have a plan in advance of like, what do you want? Like, what matters to you? What do you, do you want to pull the plug when it's time, or do you want to be on the machines? I mean, that's the simplest question. But the big questions are like, do you want to age in place? Do who takes care of your dog? What matters to you?
So, this is a huge problem, obviously, and it's, to me, it's like a starfish story, right? You have to save one at a time here. Is that the goal?
I mean, it is. If you look at the number of people over 65 who are not living near family or don't have family who are child free and don't happen to live in California or Arizona. So the amount of people that have no solution whatsoever, there's 2 million people in the United States that there's no answer whatsoever. And that number I wake up in the morning, like it boggles me. Because the problem is if we don't come up with a solution for them, everybody's aging and we got people that are, trying to figure this out. And this is an existential crisis for them.
Yeah. So what's the actionable advice then for them?
So the first thing is try to figure out if you have a friend, family you can rely on. If you're in California or Arizona, you can appoint a professional fiduciary. That's another one. If not, hey, we've got a waiting list, childfreelegacy.com. You can join us and, we'll get you on the list. I'm just going to be transparent. There's only so much we can handle. And that is a challenge.
All right, Jay, we've covered a lot of ground. Anything we missed or anything that bears reemphasizing?
I think the biggest thing to remember is if you're going to be a soloist, if you're going to get financial planning, ask how your plan is different. If your financial planner says it's not different or they don't know, you need a different financial planner because you need advice that matches you. And I think that's the hard part right now is there's not a lot of advice out there for it.
Jay, we so appreciate you coming on to share your knowledge and wisdom with us and write articles for us. It's so greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.